Hello guys, my name is Graydale, and I'm here to bring you another Genshin Impact team comp. And today's team is Sweeping Fang, a team that revolves around one of my favorite characters in the game, Razor. Paired with Xinyan, Razor can become an absolute beast. But before we begin, and like all my other videos, this is not to show you big numbers, but instead we will talk about mechanics and synergies to see if it fits your playstyle. We already covered Razor in the series intro, but if you haven't seen it or interested in knowing why, check out the linked video up there on the screen or in the description below. But let me tell you why Xinyan here. Please forgive me if I won't go too deep about her or any other characters in the team because I want to focus on the things that actually make these comps possible. I will, however, post some in-depth character videos on the description if you want to know more about them. Xinyan is another 4-star Claymore user who can provide buffs and debuffs that are extremely useful for Razor or any other physical DPS characters for that matter. She can also be an effective carry, but we're gonna focus a bit more on her supportive role for this video. So let's do a quick recap of her talents. Her normal attack is just like any other Claymore users. Nothing fancy. Her skill deals pyro damage and creates a shield. Depending on the number of enemies hit, the shield becomes stronger, and at max level, it deals pyro damage every couple of seconds. Her burst deals massive physical damage and bursts down pyro damages to surrounding enemies. Her A3 reduces the required number of hits for her shield's level. Her A4 increases physical damage when protected by her shield. What that means is that you would want to pop her skill before bursting, so you can get additional damage on her kit alone. And for her constellations, well, I think it's better to talk about it as we go to different team comps, because her constellation allows her to be played or geared in different manner. As mentioned earlier, we will focus on her supportive role, so we will skip her C1 and C6 because I believe they are primarily for DPS builds. Okay, at C0, you would want to focus on making her shield last longer, so we can benefit from her A4. The problem is that her shield is rather weak. But there are a couple of ways to work around this. First is to think of it not as a shield but rather as a buff that you need to take care of. Ironically, this means that you have to be more careful when her shield is up. It's an option, but I think that defeats the purpose of having a shield in the first place. Nevertheless, shield or without shield, you would still need to dodge as much as you can. The second way, of course, is to stack def all the way. Yes, it will reduce her DPS, but since we're running Razor, we would expect him to do the heavy lifting anyway. And for this, the White Blind along with Defender's Will is a good starting point. There are downsides to a 4 stars, which I explained in a couple of videos already. If you want to know about those, links on the description or again up there on the screen. The good thing about this, however, is that you would only need 2-piece defenders, which you can fill in place for Flower and Feather. To prove a point, you don't even have to level it up because we only want the 2-piece set bonus. For the rest, any def artifacts will do. Doesn't even need to match or be a set. But if you want, Noblesse or Bloodstained are good options. Worth noting that if you need a bit of damage, you can prioritize EM on Substat because she will be triggering overloads from time to time. And the way to increase that damage is by level and EM. For the next two characters, we would need a Cryo user for Superconduct and another Electro for Resonance. We would also need a healer, so Diona or Qiqi are good options here because they can both apply Cryo and heal at the same time. For their gears, I would highly recommend Energy Recharge to increase their burst uptime and Cryo application at the same time. That means Energy Recharge weapons. For their artifacts, you can opt for Healing Set. But it's not really that required because again, we want to play more carefully and we're protected by shield. So full set noblesse is a good alternative. And for resonance, Fischl is probably the best option here because you don't really need her on field to do damage. And if you need to fight at long range, she is also a physical damage beast with Rust. For her artifacts, Glad's and Thundering Fury is a well-balanced mix to boost her entire kit. Beidou is also an option, but we can't use her counter that much because we might not be able to switch to her when we need to. Her burst, on the other hand, would be great. So energy recharge weapon or on timepiece would be nice along with noblesse mixed with Thundering Fury will provide good burst damage. With this team, you would want to trigger Superconduct with Diona and Fischl, then skill followed by burst from Xinyan to get that extra juicy damage. Diona's burst will bring back cryo to enemies while Xinyan's shields do melts. Then Razor's burst and auto attacks. In my test, I was still able to trigger Superconduct with Xinyan's pulsing shield along with Diona's burst. I don't have Qiqi though, so I can't confirm for her. But if you know, would you let us know at the comment section? So that was the first team, and on to the next one. With Xinyan C2, she becomes a burst monster. Her burst will guarantee crit, so you can build her with max crit damage. With this, you can opt to play her as a burst DPS, because the amount of damage she can do can outscale her A4, plus she would still gain max shield. The team that I use is Razor, Xinyan, Diona, and Albedo. In this setup, Xinyan will go all out damage with her burst using crit damage. A good option here is to use physical damage, attack percent, or crit damage weapons. Snowtomb's passive has the possibility to trigger with Diona. Noblesse and Bloodstained will boost her damage even more. Attack, physical damage, and crit damage for artifacts main stats. Diona and Qiqi will be the same, while Albedo will provide extra damage to gain back the lack of Xinyan's A4 and generate shields. Razor can rock a bolide on this team, as it increases shield strength, which somehow leveraged the loss of Xinyan's defense. And while protected by a shield, he can freely use Serpent Spine here. However, he will probably have less field time and would probably do normal attacks without burst from time to time due to the lack of energy regen. You can of course opt for energy recharge, but that would reduce his TPS overall. Albedo and Xinyan will be more than enough to cover the damage lost for his lack of burst though. The rotation I like to do is start with Albedo's skill and burst, followed by Razor's hold skill, trigger Superconduct with Diona's skill, then skill plus burst from Xinyan to deal massive physical damage on debuffed enemies. Quickly pop Diona's burst, then switch to Razor for burst and auto attacks. Be sure to maximize the use of Razor's skill though, to increase his energy regen, because we would need it due to the lack of Electro Resonance. Then finally, going back to Xinyan's Constellation, her C4 debuffs enemies hit with her skill. This doesn't really change anything, but instead makes both builds more viable. This Constellation, with Razor's C4, is going to result in bigger numbers. I main Razor, but unfortunately, I only have him at C3, so I can't really test it out. I'm sad. But I will try to cover that up in other videos as soon as I get another copy. I just need one more Razor, mihoyo. And that's all for the teams. I hope you learned something new in this video. Feel free to post your questions or comments down below and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Next, in the Razor series will be Shattering Voltage, a team that aims for 100% superconduct uptime. I'm also working on other team comps, so if you're interested and want to get notified, click that subscribe button. Cheers!